What's up, everybody? This is Zach Schultz, Baron Barbell. I'm making this video today as a tutorial video, the most comprehensive tutorial video that I know how to make on the Circus dumbbell press. Now, there are some things that we have to know about Circus dumbbells themselves before we can get into technique and how I teach people how to do things. So that's what we're going to go over now. We're going to talk about the different kinds of dumbbells that we have and talk about how you select the proper dumbbell. So you'll need to know some information about whatever contest that you're training for in order to do that. So let's talk about this guy right here. This is a Mike Bartos 8-inch dumbbell. In most competitions, you will not see this dumbbell. It's very small. It is a training dumbbell typically reserved for females. Not to say that a male couldn't use it, but we'll get into why that is later. But this is a very small dumbbell. It is great for novices training or people that aren't strong enough to press a dumbbell larger than this. Moving on, we're going to move to a Texas Power Concepts 10-inch dumbbell. Taking a step back, you'll notice the diameter of these handles are different, right? So the training dumbbell here has got a really small handle. I believe it's like 1 inch. And when we move over here to the Texas Strength, and I believe this is a 1.5, maybe 2 inch. I don't know exactly. But this is a physically bigger bell as well. You can see it's taller. The diameter of the bell itself is larger. And again, it does have a little bit bigger handle. This is typically what you'll see in a female contest. 10-inch dumbbells are typical for women to press. I have seen them in men's contests too, but traditionally speaking, especially at the higher level, this is what you're going to see, 10-inch Circus dumbbell. Now moving on here, we've got 3 other dumbbells. Now these are all more male dumbbells. And I say male again because typically you don't see 12-inch dumbbells being lifted by women. And right here, this is just a massive dumbbell that is made by Mike Bartos as well. And it's a little bit different than the other ones, as you can see. And we'll talk more about that as well. So what we have here is we have a KFAB 12-inch dumbbell. The bell itself is 12 inches. And then we have a Beast Metals 12-inch dumbbell. Now, you'll also notice that even though these are technically 12-inch dumbbells, they are a little different in the way that they're constructed. So looking at the handles again, this KFAB has a 2.5 diameter handle, which is almost the largest that they make. The largest is a 3-inch diameter. I'll get more into that in a minute. And then I believe what we have here again is another 1.5-inch diameter handle on the Beast Metals dumbbell. Now, here's the thing, guys. Traditionally speaking, the most respected dumbbell presses are done with a 3-inch handle. That doesn't mean that you won't see a competition that has a handle that's different. But the most respectable presses, and this is getting into more of the political side of things, but I also agree, the most respectable dumbbell presses are done with a 3-inch handle. Obviously, it is the hardest version of a handle to handle. So, and a lot of the records broken are done on that size. Now, it's not to take away from this one, but smaller handle is a little bit easier to get your hands on, especially if you're a smaller person. This is a legitimate dumbbell. Again, like I said, the handle size and what's legitimate is a little bit more political, but this is also a very, very common size dumbbell that you'll see in competition. So if you take a look back here and look at all of our dumbbells again, you have to know what you're working with for your competition in order to properly select your dumbbell. Now, not everybody has the luxury of having a myriad of different dumbbells like we do here at Baron Barbell. So in Strongman, sometimes you just got to train with what you got. But if you have the option, you should know in your contest what you're working with so you can make the proper selection. Moving on to this last son of a bitch right here. And it deserves to be called a son of a bitch because it's exactly what it is. This is what they call the Bartos Big Top Dumbbell. Now, just to talk about these a little bit, these are what's called monster dumbbells. So these, when they're in this shape, the nickname for them is a monster dumbbell. A traditional circus dumbbell, like you'd see in like old-time strongman cartoons and stuff, is this, which is why they look like that in like old-time tattoos and in traditional style strongman art. This is a traditional circus dumbbell. They're less common. Part of the reason why they're less common is because aside from this particular dumbbell, which can be opened up and loaded, they're less common because you can't really change the weight of most of them, at least not easily. Some manufacturers will make them with sand, and of course you can change the amount of sand that you put in there, but that's a real pain in the ass when you're trying to manipulate the weight of the dumbbell, especially if multiple people are training with it. And it does make it a little bit unbalanced when you press it because sand is not a solid structure. This one you can open up and you can load it. But this is a little bit of a different style. The pressing technique is different as well. So I just wanted to show this one to you guys. Probably not going to go over the technique on this one in this video because this is mainly what I want to talk about because they're more traditional and you'll see these a lot more often. All right, guys, now we're going to talk about what I got on here, okay? So it's very much up to you on whether you want to wear elbow sleeves, knee sleeves, Olympic lifting shoes, belt, all that stuff. But most people are pretty much going to be wearing at least this right here. So let's talk about this. So this is an elbow sleeve, obviously, right? We pretty much know why we're wearing this. But down here, I've got another elbow sleeve rolled up. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the way that I press, the way that most people press, because you want that dumbbell lined up directly with your elbow, that dumbbell is going to sit on your bone. And it can be very painful. Now, not everybody feels the same way, and some people turn their arms in certain ways to where the dumbbell's actually sitting on the meat of their arm. But for me, it sits right on the top of my bone here. And so if you ever see people pressing the circus dumbbell and they've got two, almost like an entire arm with prot or sleeves on it, that's why, to protect that bone. So for me, I like to make this as soft as possible, right? So what I did is I took that elbow sleeve and I rolled it up a ton, and it gives me zero pain, so I can focus 100% on the press. Now, when I compete, I will wear two belts. I'll wear the soft underbelt and the hard belt on top, and I will wear knee sleeves. But I would say that these are paramount, and most people are going to wear this stuff. So in this video, since we're talking about the circus dumbbell and how I teach things and in my comprehension of it, this is a necessity for me and a lot of people. So moving on, talking about the actual dumbbell clean itself. So first things first, you like to have the top hand at the top of the dumbbell, right? So when you reach down, this hand, your pressing hand, is going to go on the top, and the supporting hand is going to go on the bottom, and you're going to kind of interwrap them a little bit like this. So I'll reach down, that hand goes towards the top of the bell, this hand's going to come underneath, and then once you've done that, you're going to move into the clean. Now, the clean for this is a little funky. You almost want to treat it kind of like a kettlebell swing. You want to be set up a little bit behind the dumbbell handle like I am here. Notice I'm not directly over top of it. I'm set up back here. And the reason for that is because when I pick it up, it's going to naturally swing backwards, right? So I'm not doing that. Gravity's doing that. Gravity's pulling the dumbbell directly underneath me like that. So when that happens, you already start to get some backwards momentum, which is going to play into the backswing of the clean, where you're going to swing the dumbbell back and then swing it up to your shoulders to create a little bit of that stretch reflex momentum arm to get the dumbbell up to your shoulder, because it's a lot easier to swing it than it is to just grab it and rip it off the ground. So here, placing the hands like I mentioned, we're going to swing the dumbbell back and we're going to go up to the shoulder, okay? So first thing I want you to notice is that my elbow is directly in line with the bell itself. So look at the tip of my elbow and look at where you would load the weights on the horn on the inside, right? Directly in line. If you are off to the side at all like this, right here, this is you can see it's falling, right? It's falling off of me, and you're gonna be fighting this the entire time. As it sits right here, take a look at my hand. I can actually open my hand. My hand is open right now. And that's because the dumbbell itself is sitting in three locations. Number one, supported by my forearm. Number two, supported by the palm of my hand. And then across my shoulder and the back of my head. So it's being supported in three places. So I can actually let go of it. And you'll know if the dumbbell's in the proper spot, because when you let go, it won't go anywhere. It'll stay right there. It's balanced perfectly over my shoulder. And that's exactly where you want it. You don't want to be using energy to try to fight with that dumbbell to hold it in place. Now, I want to take a small step backwards and just say that this is what you would call, the circus dumbbell is what you would call a circus trick or a party trick or a parlor trick, where doing the circus dumbbell, is not going to make you better at any other lift other than the Circus dumbbell. Why am I saying this? Because what I'm showing you, albeit a common practice with other Circus dumbbell pressers, other strongmen, there are different ways to do it. Some more efficient than others. The number one determining factor on that is your actual physical makeup, your structure, how you're built, how you're taught. And to be honest with you, aside from any of that shit, what feels the best for you? What I'm showing you today is a very typical way of doing it. I don't have any special tricks. This is how you're going to see a lot of people press it. So I put it down because I was kind of getting tired. I'm going to move on to the press now. And there are some things that change for a lot of people during the press. When I press it, I like to set up just like I was going to do a squat or a push press, because the dumbbell, Circus dumbbell press, is a push press of a sort. I consider it more of a throw because the mechanics of pressing a Circus dumbbell are more that of a throw than a press. So I like to set up like if I was doing a push press, or another thing that I like to think about is doing a shot put throw. A shot put throw obviously has a lot different mechanics, but I'm setting up toes directly sitting right on the outside of my hips, about under my shoulders, toes slightly pointed out. All right. I've seen people press it like this with 2 feet pointed in one direction, where they push their hip out sideways. So if you've got your feet facing this way, when you push back, you kind of put the dumbbell more over your center of gravity. That's a fine way to do it. I actually turn my body, my shoulders relative to my hips. So when I come down, I'm going to slightly turn like this, right? It looks similar to this, but it is not. I'm going straight down and I'm turning my body almost like a corkscrewing effect. And for me and a lot of other people, that works really well. So going back to it, I'm going to keep my eyes in the direction that my face is facing. So I'm slightly looking up when I've got this dumbbell here. I'm making sure that I feel it on the back of my head. Again, I wouldn't test this in competition, maybe in warm-ups if you're new to it. If you're not new to the Circus dumbbell, you don't really need to do this, but test that open hand balance point that I talked about, right? Make sure that it's in the proper location. So I'll be here with my hand. I like to just keep it down to the side, but shoulders pulled back nice and tight. Some people bring it out here. Some people do weird things with it. I kind of keep it down to the side and I squeeze my shoulder blades tight together. That's how I'm creating tension in my upper back. Before I get too far ahead of myself, notice how my hand is set right here. Okay. See how my hand is in front of my shoulder? That's not the position you want to be in. You want it to be here, external rotation. This is a good place to be because, again, this is going to have to do with your balance. And this is kind of covered and it makes sense when I talk about balancing it, but I should talk about creating that external rotation here to try to create a good stack position, wrist directly over elbow, not here, right, where everything's falling forward. So back to the press. I'm creating an external rotation. I'm squeezing my lat. I'm creating tension right here. Same thing on the other arm. I'm pulling these things together and squeezing. And now I've got a lot of tension in my upper back, which is my shelf. When I come down, I'm going to dip slightly. Actually, it's not a slight dip. I can dip a little bit further down for this than I do a regular push press, create more leg drive. Here, slight twist. And then when I press, I'm going to explode up, triple extend, and catch it. Now, I don't like to push jerk it. Some people do. And that's a completely fine way to do it. Everything I'm about to show you can be applied to a push jerk as well, but this is a push press for me. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and do this thing now so you can see what it looks like. Oftentimes they'll allow the dumbbell to be set kind of halfway on this mat here. There's usually a mat in front of you. So we're here behind the dumbbell, hands on top, pressing hands on top, support hands on bottom. I'm gonna swing it back up to my shoulder here. Take a look at that position, just like I talked about, gazing in the direction that my head is facing. I come down, I'm going to slightly twist and press. Now, I have to admit, that's the first press I've done all day. I haven't warmed up. And that was a lot slower and sloppier than I would typically do it. I'll do another one here in a second. But a couple things I want to talk about with that press. The slower and more controlled you dip, the less likely you are to have this happen to you. That crunching down where you're actually dropping your level of your elbow, we don't want that. You want to keep that elbow as high as you can. So the higher you keep your elbow, the less range of motion that you'll have to press. Now I will come back and say that you can be too high. You can be too high. And by extending and protracting your shoulder like that, you could expose some weaknesses that you have, because then it's harder to create tension underneath here. But for the most part, you're gonna want that elbow pointing slightly up. Now, some people do like it down here, and that's fine. Depending on the style of dumbbell that you have and how far the bells are spaced apart and how big the handle is, can change, or how long the handle is. But slightly pointed up in order to maintain that position. If you've got a heavy dumbbell, if you dip quick, you can drop that. We don't want that to drop. You want to keep that elbow nice and high. So I did slow it down a little bit, the way I typically press. Here, and jump and extend. Now the thing about this is you want to use as much leg drive as possible. So I actually will jump off the ground. I'll do another one here in a second so you can show you like a full bore press where I'm not talking about it and I'll just get into the moment. But you actually want to jump off of the ground to make sure, the jump is important to make sure that you're actually using as much leg drive as possible, because you can't really jump without exerting a lot of force, right? So if you're just kind of doing this, there's not a lot of power there. But if you're doing this, like, you know that you're putting a ton of force into that, because in order to propel yourself off the ground, you need to jump, or you need to exert a lot of force. You need to at least give you enough pressure to get your feet off the ground, right? So I'm not going to talk during this one. I'm just going to do the press. Again, I haven't warmed up very well, so I'm hoping this one looks a little bit better. So a lot more speed on that one, a lot poppier, a lot more explosive. One of the things about the Circus dumbbell, like I was just talking about, is you really need to be explosive. And this is probably one of the best tips I'm about to give you if you're a true beginner. The best way to learn how to do this, the best way to learn how to throw the dumbbell, is by practicing a shot put. Now, I'm not talking about the whole spin thing that they do at the collegiate level or even the high school level. I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about where you're here and exploding and throwing the shot put. You can use a rock, you can use a slam ball, you could probably even use a kettlebell. But that motion of the taking every ounce of muscle and all of your strength and diverting it into throwing that object is exactly the same positioning and power transfer that you want going into the dumbbell. I mean, think about it. If you haven't seen shot put before, just watch it. Or even better yet, try it for yourself, where you're twisting and throwing it as hard as you can. That's why I say that the Circus dumbbell is much more of a throw than it is a press, because the mechanics are a lot closer to a press. Or sorry, a throw. Like I said, there are some nuances and different techniques that you can use, but this is how I like to do it. I think this is the simplest and easiest way to teach someone how.